Happy to be joined by proper Mike Malott. He's going to be fighting yet again here in Canada, UFC Edmonton, November 2nd, taking on Trevin Giles. Mike, how you doing, man?
Great, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while because we haven't seen you fight in a little bit here, but I know you were supposed to fight in July. You're supposed to fight Gilbert Urbina, and then he ended up pulling out. Was the plan sort of to wait until the next Canada card, or were they trying to get you an opponent for that card?
They were talking about getting me another opponent for that card. I had just been, honestly, a week before he pulled out, I had been injured pretty badly. And I was like,
wow.
Okay, I guess we're going to navigate this camp and figure out how I'm getting to this fight and how I'm going to be able to compete. I had every intention of fighting. I was stressing out like crazy. I was not in a good spot heading into that fight, but I was like, screw it, man. I want to get back on this winning track. Like, I know I can do it. And then, he pulled out and the UFC was like, okay, we got a big pay-per-view this weekend. We'll get you an opponent next week. And that's, I messaged my coaches. I'm like, hey, this guy's out. They're going to give me a new guy next week. And the coaches are like, all right, man, it's one thing to like still fight a fight you already have. But like now that we have some time to kind of slow this down, like, are you sure we should be doing this? And we kind of all talked about it. And I was like, I was being a bit stubborn and, I mean, man, I wanted to get a win. I wanted to fight, but you know what? It was a blessing. It was for the best. I got some more time to train and heal up and prepare for this one, and we're back at it in Canada. So, like, you know what? If you can't fight on this one, there's one supposed to be in Edmonton in November. So, why don't you just wait for that one? I'm like, okay, well, that's perfect.
Yeah, it all worked out. And the thing that sucks about fighting is that, like, unlike other sports, like you have a bad night at the office, you can go and, play the next day. But with fighting, it takes a while. So, I understand your urgency, but also probably a good move, too, to, go into this a little bit more with more ideal situation, which is a little bit better. This is, I think, the first time you and I have had to talk about a loss. I know it sucks. I know you got a lot of backlash for that because you know how fans are these days. But what did you learn the most? Because early in that fight, you looked great. And I know at the end, Neil was able to get the win on you. Neil Magny, that is, at UFC 297.
Yeah. Right off the bat, I learned there's a lot of people who were just waiting for me to fall and have a bad performance. And had no problem jumping all over that. The first week or two afterwards, I was like, man, it was really bumming me out. And then it was, it took a short little while, but I feel good with it now. I'm like, look, man, it's whatever, man. People are going to talk either way. But no, I feel good about it now. Like I found out there are some things that I need to improve, man. Like that's all it is. Like, of course, I wish I won that fight. Of course, I wish I had a better performance. Of course, I wish I knew the things that I learned from that fight I knew beforehand, so I could have made adjustments in the fight. But
sorry, go ahead.
I've learned a lot of lessons since then. It's been, by the time we get in the cage, it'll be like 10 months since my last fight, and I've made some serious improvements since then. I mentioned I had the injury in the summer, but it was something I was still able to train around. Wasn't ideal at all, and I wouldn't have wanted to go into a fight like that at all, but I kept training the whole time. So this has just been like one really long camp. I've made some massive strides. I've made some massive breakthroughs with my game. I feel so much more confident than I did before 297, which is weird to say, I know, because I lost my last fight. Like it almost feels weird to be like, oh, I'm definitely more confident now than I was before, even though the last one didn't work out. But there was a lot that went, there's obviously things at the end that went horribly wrong. But there's also things to take from that fight. Like, man, I was in control of that fight for pretty much the entire time until I wasn't, and the fight ended. But I learned a lot about fighting. I learned a lot about what I need to tighten up and what I need to improve on. And there are some things that it's like, okay, this is going to take some time that you're going to have to put the time into to make the adjustments. And then there's some things that it's like, okay, we just need to shift a few things and that'll be tightened up right away. But man, I feel like such a more complete martial artist and fighter than I did in January.
Good. Well, and I think too, like getting, like, I know you had lost, but before in your career, but losing in the UFC, I'm sure it's nice to just get that out of the way. The expectations are not as, high. Like there's a lot of pressure that goes, I know you thrive under pressure, by the way. I mean, we saw this in Vancouver when you fought Adam Fugit, but I think there's part of it too, where I'm sure, hey, like it's, it's not the end of the world, the undefeated record in the UFC and all that too. Right. So
sure. But it was not nice to lose and get it out of the way. I would have much preferred to have won.
For sure, for sure. No, everyone wants. I mean, you get paid more. I mean, there's a lot of things. I do have to ask this though. Like, I think one of the concerns in that fight was that, you sort of ran out of gas a bit. Was cardio a focus, or was that like what even happened there? Can you kind of explain that? Because I think some people felt like you gassed out a bit.
I'm not going to explain that. No, I'm going to keep that stuff to me, and I'm going to keep that stuff with my
Okay.
coaches. Like, I feel like that's some stuff that needs to stay in, in the circle for a bit. But it's stuff that I've focused on a lot. Like, there's a ton of stuff that I could focus on. It's funny. My dad came up to the hotel room afterwards. And he's like, "Man, there's not really much you can learn from that one. Like, it pretty much went great until it didn't. Like, there's not much you can learn from that one." I'm like, absolutely not. Like, there's a ton of stuff I can learn from that. And like, of course, improving cardio is part of it. And, I won't get into a ton of details, but yeah, improving cardio is part of it. I went down to the PI, did a bunch of work at the PI and see what like my body specifically needs to get the most out of myself. Then there's the aspect of like, of martial arts strategy and being more efficient. And then there's stuff about I need to be pushed more. So I'm finding ways to get pushed a lot more in the room. And some of the sessions the past couple of months have been honestly horrible, like so hard. And like, I've had a few sessions where I've left the gym being like, I think that's the hardest thing I've ever done in a gym. Nice. Like mentally, and just like, oh my God, that was horrible. And, but it also gives me a lot more confidence going into this, if for nothing else. And I'm like, look, man, that tells me who I am as a man, that like, I'm willing to put myself through that kind of torture to achieve my goals and to like make the necessary growth and to improve. Cause like, dude, it would be so much easier to not do some of the shit I've done this camp. It's been so fucking hard. But like, I also feel really, really good, and I'm very confident going into this one. So I think that's why I can also say like, I'm more confident now than I was in January, because I put myself through that kind of stuff.
There we go. Good answer. By the way, I'm just doing my job, not trying to pry or anything, but dude, I did have to.
You should ask that. And for the viewers, it'd be a lot cooler if I told them exactly what happened, but I'm going to keep the stuff.
No, I don't blame you, man. I think sometimes fighters reveal a bit too much, but yeah. Okay, let's talk about Trevin Giles. I actually know Trevin quite well. I interviewed him long before he was in the UFC. He's 16-6, fought at middleweight. Now he's down at welterweight. Stylistically, how are you looking at this one?
He's good, man. He's well-rounded. I have experience against the guy. I've grabbed a hold of him before. I grappled him just under 2 years ago at Fury Grappling, and I beat him.
That's right.
Match. Yeah. So I beat him in that match. It's funny. I hear people be like, "Oh man, he's an athletic guy. He's this and that." I'm like, you didn't feel that. Like, I felt like every bit as athletic as him, if not more athletic. And he felt strong. He felt like a welterweight, man. He felt strong, but not like I grabbed a hold of him and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's strong." I'm like, I'm stronger than you, or at least as like, it didn't feel like I was like, okay, this guy has these things where I'm like, okay, I grappled him. Like, do not grapple with this guy. Like, I beat him in the grappling match. It wasn't the most action-packed match. I felt like he disengaged a lot, and I was kind of like a little more playful than I should have been, of being like, "Look, dude, we're grappling and it's on a show. Like, let's do something." And he was like, "I'm gonna stay away from you as much as I can." I was like, that was lame. But I expect him to bring it a lot more on fight night. Looks like he's got good power in his hands. Again, lots of experience, lots of fights in the UFC. Lots of openings. I feel like he's been hit a lot. I feel he's been submitted multiple times. There are like big opportunities, and then there's big things to watch out for against him. Like, this isn't the cakewalk of a guy. It's not. He's strong. He's got power in his hands. He's he moves well. He's solid on the feet, solid on the ground, solid in the tie-ups. I think I got the guy covered everywhere. I mean, I've already grappled him. I've already wrestled him. I've already felt what the wrestling is going to feel like in a lot of exchanges. We didn't have a wall to press up against, and he looks like he likes to do that, but I have no issue if the fight ends up there, whether he takes it there or I take it there. I plan on outperforming him in that area as well, and I plan on catching him on the feet and dominating him on the ground.
And he's a little bit desperate as well, because he's coming off two losses too. So that in the makings of a great fight. We're sort of looking forward to that. Training camp, and you mentioned some really tough days. Is it all at home base at Niagara Top Team, or did you get out anywhere else? To take me through camp a bit ahead of this fight.
No, camp has been all up here this time. I went down to Alpha Male for a little bit earlier this year,
Oh,
got
nice.
some great work in with my boy Ryan Loader. Just won the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
Super pumped. That guy's been an animal. That guy was, that guy gave me friggin' nightmares while I was down at Alpha Male for a while. Like having a wrestling grapple with that guy, they don't really make him any stronger than that guy. And then got some work in with my boy Fluffy Hernandez, who fights this weekend. I love that guy. He's an absolute beast. So lots of work in with him, and lots of work with all sorts of high-level guys down at Alpha Male. Met Mektabek Worldby for the first time and got lots of work in with him. He was
interesting dude. I've actually interviewed him once. He's really, really cool.
He's super good fighter. He was like a week and a half, 2 weeks out from his fight when we worked. So I met him, but got a bunch of work in with him, and then lots of other guys. Obviously, Feely's one of my best friends in the world. Got to train with him, and Chris Gonzalez. He was a Bellator fighter, super high level wrestler. Slava Borshev was a couple weeks out from a fight, so I got to spar with him a bunch, and he's a killer, especially on the feet. I'm sure I'm missing other guys, but tons of good guys down there.
What about at Top Team? Who'd you get to work with this time?
Yeah, I've been getting tons of good work up here at Top Team. Aaron Jeffrey is always like one of my main training partners, which you're not going to find a guy at welterweight as strong as him. You're not going to find a guy who can just press forward and do sorry. He doesn't do a lot of crazy fancy stuff. He just is meat and potatoes, perfect, doesn't really make mistakes, strong as an ox, doesn't slow down. He's just a nightmare of a training partner, but is a perfect template for most MMA fighters, where you're this guy's going to do everything he should do. He's going to do it perfectly. He's not going to make any mistakes. He's not going to slow down, and he's strong as hell. Have fun. So he's super, super tough to go with. Lots of other welterweights to work with. Tommy Theocaris just got off the Ultimate Fighter. My boy Pat Carroll's out from Halifax, a guy I grew up in the MMA circuit with. Cam Nelson's in town from PEI. I've been getting some sparring with him. Bobby Poultier, getting lots of rounds in with him. And then the staple guys at NTT, Kevin Popowick and Zach Powell and Jared Dumont and Anthony Romero's in PFL and Adam Asenza. A lot of good guys, lots of lightweights, welterweights, middleweights, a lot of good guys. And then just high level grapplers, high level wrestlers, high level, strikers, a good mix of guys to work with.
Love it. Your corner, same as usual, Chris Prickett. Who else is going to be in the cage with you?
Yeah, Chris Prickett, Krillin Helmegen, my striking coach, and Andre Grandbois. And then I'll have Big Danny Patterson, my mental coach, out with me too, but he won't be in the corner.
How long have you been working with a mental coach? Been a while?
Oh yeah, it's going on 12 years.
Oh really? Time. Okay. For some reason I thought this was recent. Okay, that's cool. No, good you got all bases covered, man. It's great. So.
I'm blessed, man. I've got elite level everything, man. These coaches I have are incredible, and it's kind of the Top Team is the perfect mix of a big gym and a small gym, where all my rounds today I had multiple coaches watching all my rounds. So today was sparring. It's kind of why I'm a little just tired today, but
no worries. You got a lot of energy for this interview. I'll give you that, man. That's great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, 5-minute rounds in the cage, bunch of coaches watching everything, critiquing everything. Okay, this is what we're trying to do this fight. Keep these things in mind and stick to what you think is gonna be most fruitful in the fight. And I'm really happy with the shots that I'm landing. I'm really happy with the way I'm grappling. I'm really happy with the way I'm wrestling. I'm the way I'm performing in the room. If it's even remotely close to how I perform in the fight, I'm winning this fight.
And how are you winning this fight? You said, you want to go out there, you want to put on a good performance. How do you see this one unfolding on November 2nd?
My last fight's the only fight in my career where I felt like I needed to get a finish, and I had to get a finish. And it's one of the only ones I didn't. And I'm not putting that pressure on myself to get this finish or to get this guy out of here. If it has to be a 15-minute war, that's fine. If I have to grind out a decision and find a way to win and find a way to come back from the brink of defeat, I am okay with that. I've shown time and time again capable of finishing a fight by strike or by strangle, putting somebody out, putting somebody's lights out the second they make a mistake. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if I get a stoppage. I have power in my hands and I latch on necks quickly. But I'm also down to grind out a fight. I'm down to get into a scrap if I have to. I don't really care about the prediction for this one. I just want to go back out there, show the growth that I've had all year. I'm really proud of all the work that I've put in. I'm proud of the way that I've in the gym and in my life bounced back from the first loss in the UFC, and I'm proud of all the work that my coaches have put in. I just want to show some of that in the cage, and I think if I fight anything like the way I perform in the room the last several months, I don't think a win will be a problem at all.
Love it. Just wanted to ask you about a couple other fights here quickly. We got that Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira rematch coming up November 16th. Who do you think has the edge there?
Probably Oliveira again.
Okay.
He's had a lot more success. He's had more success since the last fight, as far as like who's been on more of a winning streak. And he got the win after the last one.
John Jones and Stipe.
Jones.
Okay. And guy you saw fight on your last card, Voyev is fighting Aljamain Sterling. Who wins that featherweight fight, do you think?
I think Aljo, buddy. I think Aljo's going to pull it out, man. Dude, probably one of the most underappreciated champions in UFC history. I don't get it, man. He's really good, and he's a super nice guy. I don't get all the hate for him. I don't know him super well, but he's just like a nice guy. I like
him. Top of your division, we got Bilal Muhammad's the new champ since last time you and I spoke, and he's fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov. How do you think that fight plays out?
Probably Rakhmonov.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. He is the favorite going in. You mentioned Fluffy Hernandez. At the time of recording this, obviously he's fighting Michel Pereira. I think he's one of the most underrated fighters in the weight class. You've been in the gym with him. I'm really excited for this fight tomorrow. We'll see how it plays out. I should say Saturday, not tomorrow. How excited are you to see him get this opportunity? Because obviously, first main event for him.
Dude, he's so good. I don't even think of him as underrated anymore. I just think of him as like having like a cult following. Like a lot of the guys.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
A lot of the guys that know fighting are like, no, that guy's. I feel like a lot of mainstream fans don't necessarily know him, but the guys who like know fighting and watch a lot of fighting are like, well, that guy's sick, and he is. He's so good. And Michel Pereira is dangerous, especially early, so you can never count him out. But dude, Fluffy's so good. I think he's going to dominate this. I think he's going to absolutely dominate this fight.
Yeah, and by the way, he had a Matthew Jelly reference in our interview, so I thought that was cool.
Did he?
Out Jelly, yeah. So that was good. So the world's all connected, So
yeah, man.
Last question: How's your brother doing? I know I'm a big hockey fan, so he's with the Kings now, if I'm not mistaken. The Kings farm system.
Yeah, so he signed with the Kings, and he's down with the Ontario Reign right now. He got an A last week, so assistant captain of the Ontario Reign. Yeah, man, that kid's a killer, man. I love that kid. Just such a hard worker, sticks to the process, and like we have a lot of good chats whenever we're both home in the summer. That's when we end up spending the most time together, just both in Ontario throughout the summers, and we have a lot of good chats just because we're on obviously similar paths, like very different sports, but there's a lot of crossover. And yeah, man, I'm just so proud of that kid, and I'm pumped that he got to go to LA and lives right by the beach now, and his downtime spent by the ocean on the beach. Like, I'm just happy for the kid. I'm probably going to end up booking a flight down there right after this fight.
Cool. Well, I was going to say, it's kind of interesting that you used to live in California training at Team Alpha Male. He's now there. And the place is called Ontario. Like, anyone says Ontario in Canada, you're thinking of, the province in Canada, not California, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I like those old Chevy uniforms they wear. I know the Kings are wearing those as their main ones now, but the Chevy logo, the gray and the black. Yeah. I love those uniforms. I think they look so much better than the other ones. So
no, they're sick. I love those.
Yeah, this was a sick interview, Mike. I appreciate it, man. Good times. UFC Edmonton, November 2nd. Anyone you want to thank before we get out of here? Sponsors, social media, you name it. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, Skilled Trades College, Happy Dad, Perfect Sports. Niagara Top Team, Grappling Garden, House Champions MMA, all my teams, my wife, all my friends. Love you guys.
There we go. All right. We are